So far, Talking Point has come for your sponges, your reusable water bottles, ta-da! And even your non-stick pans. This time, we're coming for something else. Viewer Jia wants to know, how dirty are our chopping boards? And does regular cleaning help?So, Jia, we're off to do what we do best. Put your chopping boards to the test to find out what's really hiding in plain sight.
Hello, I'm here to collect your board.
Our Talking Point team is collecting some samples.
Thank you.
My chopping board is about 1 year old. I use it for everything, fruits, seafood.
How often do you cook within 1 week?
Once a week, mainly for my toddler only.
This board is about 5 years old. We use this board for cutting meat and fish. We generally cook 5 to 6 times a week.
Less than 1 year. Cook about 5 times a week.
In total, we collected 10 chopping boards from viewers, 5 wood and 5 plastic. Usage varied quite a bit, from 2 to 3 times a week to multiple times a day, every day. And as always, my own cleaning skills will be put under the microscope too. I have 2 plastic chopping boards. One is for raw meat and the other one only for fruits and vegetables. In my household, we cook 2 meals 6 days a week. We've sent the boards to March Wood Laboratory Services, a lab that usually examines water, soil, air and waste for pollutants. So this is a rather unusual request. They are testing the boards for the total amount of active bacteria present, as well as some specific, particularly nasty ones, like Salmonella, E. coli or Listeria.
So Diana, we have 10 chopping boards here, and they'll be arranged from the cleanest to the dirtiest.
Okay. Before you start, what do we consider a clean board?
This board has a result of ND or not detected for all the microbiological parameters.
Does it mean that this board is actually really clean?
Yes, indeed. As you can see here, this board has really few cuts, and from my understanding, it's actually 6 months old only. Alright, Diana, so now let's take a look at the dirtiest board. It has over 7 million bacteria on it.
Okay.
80,000 yeast and molds on it, 5,000 biofilm forming bacteria, and 21 E. coli.
Ooh, wait, E. coli.
Yes, E. coli.
Is that not the very bad bacteria?
That is one of the better bacteria, and that means that there's fecal contamination on it, like poop contamination.
What is biofilm?
Biofilms are actually a protective layer that trap bacteria. They actually make it much harder to get them off your board.
So all these boards are of varying ages. My question is, does the age correlate with the cleanliness of the boards?
Surprisingly, no. So for example, this board right here is actually about 4 years old, and it's not as dirty as dirtiest of the lot. That's only 2 years old.
Then what matters?
Well, I would actually suspect it's more of the physical conditions of the board. Deep cuts can actually trap a lot of bacteria and other food material, as well as how one washes the board and how one keeps the board. So if you keep your board constantly wet, that means that these guys will keep growing on your board.
Okay, now for my boards.
Diana, these are your cutting boards.
Okay.
Are you nervous?
I am looking at my boards with fresh eyes.
All right, Diana, are you ready for it?
Stop it, go for it.
Your boards are actually clean, like clean.
Oh, my precious babies, really?
Yes.
This is such a relief for me. Let's wrap it up.
Wait, but I'm curious. There's so many deep cuts on the board. This is rigged.
Wait, my producer is contesting the
This is
result.
rigged. You look at the board, the cuts are so deep.
She is saying that it's rigged.
Wait, so help us to understand, why is it that her board has so many deep cuts but it's clean?
So my guess is that your boards are quite young. I understand they're less than 1 year old.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one. And how do you keep your boards in the kitchen? Like, do you dry them well? Do you scrub them really clean?
The most important thing is that when the boards are washed, they are always left to dry. And secondly, they are also stored in their own casing that has got ventilation around. There is nothing bacteria love more than water, because moist conditions are where they thrive and reproduce, which is why it is essential to thoroughly dry your chopping board after each wash. Data in hand, I'm going to share the good news and the not so good news with our chopping board owners. Are you nervous for the results?
I scared my wife to scold me.
The results of our chopping boards are in, and it's time to break the news to our viewers. Hello, Alvin. Okay, you look very confident. That's interesting. As a matter of fact, your board has come out the cleanest.
Oh,
How often do you cook?
I cook 5 times a week, usually not too heavy duty. It's non-oily stuff, steamed veg for my kids.
Ah, do you do a lot of raw meat?
Yes, minced meat, raw chicken.
So your chopping board is a mixed-use chopping board.
No, actually I separate them. I have a board for chicken, raw meats, and I have a board for veg.
Your chopping board that we sent for testing, what do you use it for?
I use it for raw chicken and raw meat.
Wow, that is remarkable, because I'm going to show you your results. This is you. And for a 1-year-old chopping board, you know what this stands for? It means that all the bacteria that we tested for is not detected.
Oh wow, that means I must be doing something right.
So maybe you can teach me something. How do you maintain your chopping board?
So I wash them lightly with soap and sponge, followed by a hot water rinse after that.
And where do you store your chopping board?
Usually I'll hang them on the rack over there.
Okay, I see. Hi, Olivia. Thank you. Are you nervous for the results?
I scared my wife to scold me.
Okay, are you ready for this? I don't have very good news, I'm afraid. Okay, the bad news is we found E. coli on your chopping board. You are surprised. Why are you surprised?
Because we always wash our hands and not before I touch food, so we don't really know where it came from.
Who is in charge of the washing?
Me.
Okay, what are your thoughts? Like immediate reaction.
I thought I did a pretty good job in washing.
Okay, what do you use your chopping board for?
I use it to cut raw meat, like chicken, pork, fish, and also vegetables. But I usually will cut the vegetable first before I cut the raw meat.
How do you store your chopping board?
I show it to you.
Yeah, let's go.
So usually I will, after washing, right, I will dry it with a cloth first.
Okay.
Yeah, then I will put it here after drying.
Your wife is very silent and very scared.
I think after today, she's not going to let me come in the kitchen anymore.
Okay, no, but what do you think might be the problem with the storage?
I think it's very near to the basin and there's a lot of moisture. It's not very well ventilated in this space.
We went from a board with no bacteria detected to another with almost 7 million bacteria, including E. coli and biofilm. How do the rest of the boards fare? We collected 5 plastic and 5 wooden boards. The x-axis represents the weekly usage of the board and the y-axis the total bacteria count. Let's start by looking at the boards with the highest usage, more than 6 times a week. 2 plastic boards and 1 wood. The 2 dirtier boards averaged out at a count of slightly above 1,000. However, the third board, a plastic one with the highest usage, did really well. It had hardly any bacteria count. It's also the cleanest board in our entire collection. And then we look at the boards with relatively low usage, between 2 to 4 times a week. Now here is where it gets a little surprising. One of the wooden boards had a pretty high bacteria count, clocking in at almost 3,000, and with a pretty significant presence of yeast and mold. And another low usage board came in at a count of almost 600,000 and traces of biofilm. This was also the second dirtiest board in our collection. And finally, the board with the highest bacteria count is a plastic board. Used between 4 to 6 times a week, it had both E. coli and biofilm. So looking at this graph, it seems that plastic boards generally fare better than the wooden ones. And frequent use does not determine how dirty your board is. In fact, a low usage board could be harboring an ecosystem of nasty microorganisms. Those could lead to some serious health issues. Of the 10 viewer boards we sent for testing, we had 1 plastic board and 1 wooden board with biofilm. And actually, a study in 2018 showed that plastic and wood are more prone to forming a biofilm than glass. This could be due to the scratches and grooves easily formed on plastic boards, and in case of wood, its porous structure. Biofilms are responsible for more than 80% of all chronic human bacterial infections, but the research into creating effective treatments is still lacking. I want to find out why and how biofilms are so tenacious, which is why I'm going to meet a microbiologist. Her job is to study these invisible troublemakers to see how they live, reproduce, and impact our lives.
Let me just show you a picture here. This is an example of some bacteria, and these little webs are the slimy thing that you are feeling on the chopping board.
So the web-like thing is part of the biofilm.
Correct.
So how is a biofilm different from bacteria?
Biofilm basically is a community of many different bacteria within the surface itself.
How can I get rid of the biofilm as well as the bacteria that are trapped underneath?
Okay, so let's take a look. Let me put on my gloves. So what we have here is a blue coloring dye, and they represent the bacteria. So what we'll do next is we will introduce this bacteria to the chopping board. So I'm just going to spread the bacteria around the board. So here you can actually see inside the lines, you can actually see the groove very clearly, and that's where the bacteria is residing.
What's happening next?
That's where I will introduce the glue, which actually represents the biofilm formation.
So this sticky glue is going to represent the biofilm, the slippery, slimy layer over our chopping boards.
So I'm just going to give it a quick rub on the surface.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how it will be like, the slimy texture and feeling that you get.
So let's imagine you have one little bacterial cell landing on your board. If it ends up hanging out there for a few hours, then it's staying put. It has irreversibly attached to the surface of your board and begins multiplying. And now you have a colony. Within 6 to 12 hours, this colony begins secreting a slimy glue-like substance. And from there, these glue-encased colonies continue growing and spreading, becoming more and more resistant to cleaning. Protected by the layer of biofilm, bacteria like E. coli and Listeria can remain on your cutting boards, increasing the risk of contaminating your food and getting a food-borne illness.
I'm going to wash this chopping board like how I would normally wash at home. Okay, would you like to feel it first?
Yep, feels like the glue's all gone.
Even though it actually doesn't feel slimy anymore, you notice these blue color stains within the grooves, and this is where your bacteria are hiding, and these bacteria are still in the grooves.
So what if I were to use hot water after cleaning? Will that help?
Hot water can actually reduce the bulk of it, but do take note, biofilm is actually very resistant to heat, to chemicals, and you may not be able to entirely eradicate them.
How can I tell when to throw away my chopping board?
So if you were to see lots of discoloration or you have deep grooves that you can no longer clean it up properly, it's time for a change.
Wood and plastic may be the most common material for cutting boards, but alternative materials have been around for a while, being marketed as non-toxic, knife-friendly, or even more aesthetic. In his 20-year career as a chef, Anthony Yeo has tested a few different chopping board materials in a bid to find his holy grail board: hygienic, easy to clean, and gentle on his knives. So in Singapore households, we use a lot of plastic and wooden chopping boards, but I know there are alternative materials out there. Tell me about them.
Sure. So over here we've got a glass cutting board. This is not ordinary glass, it's tempered glass. It's a lot hardier. It's not going to shatter all of a sudden while you're cutting your vegetables on it. Over here we have a stainless steel cutting board. So this is actually a lot heavier than the rest of the boards, but much hardier as well. Over here we have a TPU board, a thermal polyurethane board, which combines the best of plastic and rubber together. So you can see it's actually quite flexible when you use it. So it's a bit softer, a bit easier, a bit more cushioning when you're cutting. So the main difference between a plastic board and a TPU board is that this is a lot more flexible and also a bit more scratch resistant as well. This is a bit newer in the market than the rest of these boards. So this is a plastic board, but what's special about this is it comes in a set with a caddy. So after you've washed the board, you put it into the caddy and it will blow hot air to help dry it, as well as uses UV light to actually disinfect the boards.
What are some of the factors that determine how I can maintain my chopping boards?
It's the porosity that you're looking for, as well as the hardiness of the material. It's porosity. It's actually the ability for the material to absorb things like moisture, smells, which will result in bacteria growing up.
So, technically speaking, the less porous the material, the better it is.
Yes. So secondly, scratch resistance is a big factor. If you get all these nicks, scratches, you can imagine bits of food are going to get stuck in those gouges.
What other factors would you consider?
The grip, because you don't want to be chopping something and then having your board slip while you're holding a knife, right? That's not very safe.
Now, can you take me through the pros and cons of each board?
So let's start with the tempered glass board here. Well, it's non-porous, it's very easy to clean. So some of the cons with a glass cutting board is the noise. It's also going to dull your knife faster. So let's move on to the stainless steel board. So this one, some of the pros with this, very, very easy to clean. It's probably the hardiest board out of these four. So some of the cons of using a stainless steel cutting board, the noise, hard tapping sound again. Also, it is going to dull your knife. With a stainless steel cutting board here, there is no grip at all.
Any other con?
It is much heavier than the rest of the boards as well. Alright, so over here we have the TPU board, the thermal polyurethane board. It is relatively non-porous, so easy to clean. It's not going to make a lot of noise. It's very cushioned. Yeah, it's not going to dull your knife as fast as the rest of the materials. But I mentioned that it is scratch resistant, but it's also not scratch proof. Okay, if you hack away at this hard enough, you are going to get gouges in it because it is a soft kind of bouncy material, you know. Because it blasts it with UV light, you would expect that it's going to be more hygienic. And theoretically, you don't need to worry about spending as much time scrubbing all the little nooks and crannies.
What about the cons for this one?
It will have the same properties as most of your plastic boards. It is subject more to scratching. It is going to be more expensive than your average board.
There seems to be two critical factors that impact the cleanliness of a chopping board: porosity and scratch resistance. And the alternative materials fare differently on these fronts. So rather than just guess how hygienic they really are, I'm putting them to the test. We've seen the alternatives, glass, TPU, stainless steel, and even a self-cleaning UV board. They all have different pros and cons, so let's test them. So, I've got 6 chopping boards here, and I'm going to be putting them through a test to see which ones are potential breeding ground for bacteria. To keep things fair, I'm giving each board a fresh start with alcohol. Now it's time to put them through their paces. We'll cut the same amount of raw meat on each board, same amount of pressure, same number of knife strokes. Then wash each board with exactly 2 pumps of dishwashing liquid. They all get dried on a rack, except for the UV board that goes into its little contraption. Then, the swab of truth. Let's see what these boards are really hiding. These 6 samples are off to the lab for the same battery of tests as before, looking at total bacteria count and the presence of any potentially dangerous microorganisms. Let's start with the board with the highest bacteria count. Which one was it?
So the board with the highest bacteria count was the wooden board.
Why do you think it was the wooden board?
Given the nature of wood, it's naturally porous, and that means it might be harder for it to dry. And bacteria loves water, and when bacteria is in contact with water, it multiplies a lot. So Diana, guess which boards had the lowest bacteria counts?
I put my bet on stainless steel simply because it is the smoothest.
So Diana, you're right actually. The board is actually very easy to clean off, and it's very hard for it to get very deep scars. That means that less things are trapped inside the board.
Of our 4 alternative and 2 control boards, the stainless steel and plastic ones came in with no bacteria detected, which could be explained by the new unmarred surfaces. The glass and UV boards came in with relatively low counts, 70 and 200 respectively, while the TPU and wooden boards topped the list at 700 and 900. TPU boards are often touted as self-healing, but the little slice marks may not always join back together seamlessly, leaving micro pockets where bacteria can gather and multiply. So my big takeaway for this episode is how you care for your chopping boards matters way more than what it's made of. And remember, use different chopping boards for raw meat as well as fruits and vegetables. After each use, wash your board thoroughly and preferably with hot water. And remember to store your board in a well-ventilated area. If you start seeing deep grooves or discoloration, maybe it's time to throw it out.